Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another solo spooky story. My name is Rob, and today I'll be your host. For those of you that don't know, the solo spooky stories just a short episode hosted by myself where I just go through something that's just kind of interesting to me, or talk about a topic that wouldn't have enough content for a main episode between myself and Zeus, or something else that's been recommended by a listener. And we'll just talk about it. They're usually just shorter episodes, usually like 10-15 minutes maybe, perfect for having a cup of coffee or tea with it. And we just myself just talking about it. And that's really the purpose of these episodes. People do seem to prefer, there's kind of people who like the shorter episodes, they're easy to listen to in the car or whatever, and then there's other people then that prefer the long episodes. So, we're providing both to our fans. But I hope whenever it is that you're listening to this that you're having a good day, and you're ready for another little batch of spookiness. So today we are talking about a cryptid which we've actually not talked about in quite a while, and that's an absolute shame, because cryptid stories are great crack. I'm a big fan of them, and today's story is one of the more strange ones. It's a really weird one. I came across this story initially when I was looking up the phenomenal story that is the bat-winged monkey bird. And how could we ever move away from that I suppose the peak of cryptid hunting that we did there. But I came across this other bat-themed cryptid when I was looking that up, and I made a note that I would at some point make an episode on this. So today we are talking about the Batsquatch, which itself is a phenomenal name. I'm all there for it. It sounds a bit redneck, it definitely does, but it's just a great story, and I'm all here for it. It's literally got its origin stories in a volcanic eruption, and what other kind of things could you want from a cryptid story? So as I said, we're going to be talking about the Batsquatch today. So obviously Batsquatch comes from bat and Sasquatch, and for those of you that don't know, I doubt anyone listening to this podcast wouldn't know, but Sasquatch is another term for Bigfoot. And Bigfoot is primarily seen in the Pacific Northwest in the States, and is a fairly kind of iconic image of cryptids. Basically, I think if you look up really kind of any sort of cryptid websites or fan bases or anything like that, usually Bigfoot is there knocking about, so it's pretty iconic. And as I said, really kind of iconic in the Pacific Northwest in particular. However, Sasquatch being the other name for Bigfoot has nothing on what we're talking about today, being the winged horror that is known as the Batsquatch. So to talk about, I suppose, where Batsquatch comes from, we have to look at the history and the first sightings of Batsquatch. So on March 27th, 1980, the top of Mount St. Helens, a famous volcano in the States, exploded. And the eruption from this particular volcano sent a plume of ash up into the air, and was kind of a precursor of what was due to come. So as everyone listening knows, or assume knows, Mount St. Helens ultimately, after this point then on the 18th of May, experienced a 5.1 magnitude earthquake, which basically ripped through the entire area. And unfortunately, with this happening, it triggered part of the volcano to collapse in on itself, forming what I actually discovered was the largest landslide in recorded history. The avalanche of rock that came from this was moving at just an insane speed, and ultimately ended up causing an eruption in the volcano, sending just debris and ash just everywhere. I actually saw, just interestingly online, that the column of ash from this went 80,000 feet into the air, which is just mind-boggling. And it buried the surrounding area in anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of ash, which is a huge amount. I also saw that some of the particles of the ash actually traveled quite a long distance, with approximately half an inch of ash spreading from the north of Mexico to Minnesota, which is just a huge area, and really just goes to show the size of the explosion that was experienced through Mount St. Helens erupting. Unfortunately, a number of people did die, 57 in total, and hundreds of people, if not thousands, were also displaced by this huge eruption, and the local environment as well in the area was completely destroyed. Everyone has seen the iconic images of trees just being completely blown over, entire valleys just completely desiccated, no life at all living there. It genuinely looked like a nuclear bomb went off, and for all intents and purposes, an explosion did occur. Just, not a nuclear weapon in this circumstance. However, with all of this happening, and with this just deeply horrific event happening, soon stories began to emerge of a strange creature that was seen around the eruption site. And not only was this creature seen around the eruption site, it was actually seen flying near the eruption site. Witnesses started to talk about seeing this ape-like creature with large leathery wings and a pair of glowing red eyes flying in the skies around Mount St. Helens, around, as I said, the eruption site. And there were quite a number of sightings that were reported in the days and weeks after this, where they all kind of were reasonably consistent in talking about these specific sightings taking place. This specific creature just knocking about there, but no one really knew what it was. It wouldn't be for another 14 years, so 1994, before we got the first, I suppose, concrete and most famous sighting of this creature. So flash forward then to April of 1994. A man called Brian Canfield was driving home one night through the forested area of Pierce County in Washington State. So he was, as the Pacific Northwest is quite rural, this is no exception here, and he was quite a good bit outside of any sort of towns or anything like that. Which, for the most part, when I picture Pacific Northwest, I just picture forests, so this kind of checks. So as he's driving along, just, driving home, I see him just being focused on getting home as soon as he could. His car just shut off. So he was just driving, and then all of a sudden it's just dead. So Brian tried to start the engine several times, just to no avail. It was just completely dead. And he said that this basically was an old pickup truck that he was driving. It just would not start. Kind of made me think of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. If anyone has seen that, pickup truck driving along and all of a sudden it just dies. There's no life in it at all. That's exactly what I'm picturing here, but in a forest instead of on a main road. So he was on the verge. Basically, he was planning on getting out. He was going to lift up the bonnet and see what he could do, and try to fix it. I'd imagine people who live out this rural in the Pacific Northwest are probably reasonably handy as amateur mechanics. So Brian probably knows his way around his truck. Was probably planning on fixing it himself if he needed to. So even though the truck itself was dead, the headlights were still on, obviously because the battery was still powered. So as he was planning on getting out of the truck, he said all of a sudden something swooped across his headlights. He initially said at first that he thought it was just some sort of bird, just a large bird. There are quite a few in the region, apparently, so just some sort of bird of prey or something just flying around. And he didn't really think anything of it. He was getting ready to get out of the truck when all of a sudden, whatever this was that flew past the headlights landed on the bonnet of his truck. And what Canfield described after this was a creature standing approximately 9 feet tall with a bat's face and wings attached to a blue furred humanoid body. He said that it had large fangs and that it also had glowing red eyes. So Canfield actually gave an interview to the News Tribune in Tacoma, Washington after this, and I have a direct quote from him here. So he says, "It was standing there staring at me like it was resting, like it didn't know what to think. I was scared. It raised the hair on me. I didn't feel threatened. I just felt out of place. It was looking right at me, like in a deep stare, like right through me. It was standing perfectly still. It stood for, how long? A few minutes. Several minutes. Then its fingers twitched and its wings began to unfold. Those wings were just as wide as the road. It turned its head, looked back at me and started flapping its wings. A few minutes later, the truck just started. I took off as fast as I could." So this is mad. This is just completely mental. So this creature lands on his truck, basically like stares him out of it, pretty much looks him in his soul basically, wins whatever staring contest the two of them were clearly having, unfolds its wings, which just so happened to also be the width of the road, which is, I suppose, a good reference point for him for gauging how large it is. And then it just flies off. And then to top it all off, his car turns back on then. So we're left here to basically assume that this creature somehow knows or has the power to basically switch off vehicles, land down, basically like show himself off being like, I am a jacked Sasquatch basically with wings. You'll look at me until I'm done with you. And then just fucking hoofs itself off then into the sky and then just lets the vehicle turn back on. This is mad. Like I feel like you couldn't make this up. It's that strange. Like it genuinely reads like some sort of just weird fiction that you'd see online. Yeah, so a man named C.R. Roberts of, as I said, the News Tribune in Washington interviewed Brian Canfield about this on his experience with the creature, and he ultimately later published an article detailing the story. Roberts used Canfield's descriptions to basically just determine what he was going to name the creature. And he took the description of, as he said, bat wings, bat head, and then a kind of ape-like body. He decided to christen this creature the Batsquatch, due to its combination of, as I said, bat features and I suppose Sasquatch-looking features as well. Naturally, as you can imagine, Canfield's story spread throughout the Pacific Northwest quite quickly, and a knock-on that came from this is that locals actually started coming forward, reporting their own sightings of the Batsquatch, including a local off-license owner called Butch Whitaker, which is a fucking fantastic name. Love it. And Whitaker claimed to have seen he claimed to have seen the Batsquatch during a midday flight in his personal plane, as you do. Over the area that Brian Canfield had actually been driving. And according to him, the Batsquatch flew beside his plane for several minutes before turning and disappearing from view. So this Batsquatch creature was able to maintain the speed of a cruising aircraft before disappearing. Phenomenal. I love this. So yeah, after the 1994 sightings, the Batsquatch basically just pretty much it went from this really popular story to, from one article I saw online, said that it basically faded from memory as soon as it became famous, which is quite sad in one sense. You know, everyone should know about Batsquatch. However, as you know, these things do happen. There has been some stories since, you know, of people talking about it. So in 1998, a trucker hauling logs in Northern Oregon claimed to have hit the Batsquatch in his truck. This trucker, though, disagreed with Canfield's original account, and he described the creature as 15 feet tall. He said it had a purple nose with eyes and a tiny wings, which is just great. You know, real fisherman's tale there. And then in 2009, a group of hikers were making their way up Mount Shasta when they saw what they described as a flying humanoid creature with bat-like features. And this is the best description I've ever seen of a cryptid ever. They described what they saw as a man, quote, stocky as Hulk Hogan, with leathery wings 50 feet from one end to the other and the face of a bat. So, yeah, they said they basically saw a flying Hulk Hogan with wings, just as you do. And yeah, these two stories have been added into official Batsquatch sightings, which I just love this. I love the story of Batsquatch. But yeah, you know, you can't really argue with a good cryptid story. So yeah, Batsquatch kind of goes into the other flying cryptids that are out there, like Mothman, and I believe the Jersey Devil are also is a flying cryptid. And it ultimately became, it got the ultimate kind of award given to it, in that it now has an IPA named after it. So Rogue Brewery IPA now has a Batsquatch beer, which I absolutely love. And yeah, they said that they chose the name because, quote, all stories of Batsquatch are a bit hazy on the details. So what better than to honor the legend with a hazy IPA? I love this. So I'm gonna have to check in with the beer ladies and see if they've heard of Batsquatch hazy IPA, and if not, we'll maybe have to order some and try it out. But with that ends the story of the Batsquatch. I'd love to hear what you think of this, where you land on this weird story. You're welcome for the image of a flying leathery Hulk Hogan flying just up in the air there. It's a great one that I'm gonna keep with me for the rest of my life. But yeah, I'd love to hear your own theories on this. You can let us know where you fall down on this story. You can reach us on Instagram at the Spooky AF Pod, Threads at the Spooky AF Pod. We're also on YouTube. There's YouTube comment sections there, or you could send us an email at thespookyafpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, or if you have any other cryptid stories that you're also aware of that you'd like us to look into. It would be great to get a little kind of database of cryptid stories that you want us to look into. But with that, I hope you have a lovely day whenever it is you're listening to this, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy, guys.